Hello, everybody. This is Peter B., and welcome to another episode of Tobacco Card Tuesday. So we're going to continue down the alphabetical list of T205s, but this first player I actually skipped. I didn't mean to skip him. I should have done him the last time, but for some reason when I was pulling my cards, I totally skipped him. So we're going to start with him and then continue where we left off. So as you see, our first player is Hal Chase, and he is seen here on the New York Highlanders, which would later become the Yankees. Hal Chase was a very good, actually great fielding first baseman that played for 15 years with the Highlanders, Reds, Buffalo of the Federal League, White Sox, and Giants. He has 2,158 hits, 57 home runs, and a .291 batting average. So he was a very good player. But he could have become a very great player if he took it seriously. Unfortunately, his reputation is based on controversy, gambling and throwing games, and also involved with the 1919 Black Sox. His major league career started when the New York Highlanders drafted him from the Pacific Coast League, which violated a peace agreement between the two leagues against stealing players. So right off the bat, there's controversy with him being in the major leagues. During his whole career, he was involved in between throwing games. Many times he asked both teammates and opponents to throw games in his favor because he was betting on games. In 1919, playing for John McGraw's Giants, McGraw got rid of him and also Zimmerman, who were both known as gamblers. And Chase was informally banned from that point on from the major leagues. Later, he was formally banned when the Black Sox scandal came out, as Chase was one of the earlier conspirators to get the White Sox players to throw the game. After not being able to play in the major leagues, he went back to California, where he's from, to play in the California League, but was also soon banned from that league for gambling and throwing games. Finally, he played in the outlaw Arizona and Mexican leagues, became an alcoholic, and got divorced. He did pass away on May 18th, 1947. He was called everything from a bum to a genius, but the best summary of him as a player comes from June 13th, from an issue in the Sporting News, and it says, "He can play first as it never was, and perhaps never will be played. It's a well-known fact. That he will play that way is a different matter." And unfortunately, he could have been great, but he was into gambling and throwing games and get other players to throw games for him. This Chase wasn't allowed back into the major leagues, and he has a big black spot on his record. So here is Hal Chase. Chase actually has two variations in this set. He's a player that has two cards. This one is called Chase Both Ears Show. You can see his right ear and a left ear. Also notice that the third and first base lines, instead of stopping at his shoulders where every other American League player does, it actually continues down all the way to that little pennant that has his name and team. That is actually a misprint, and this is a more rare card. This is the card after it was fixed, and once again you can see where the third and first baseline stop at his shoulders. That's the way it should be. That's the corrected version. And this was one of the initial ones printed incorrectly. But this isn't a variation. This is a print difference. So that his first variation, his first card. Nice red background with the, this one's more green. This one's like a blue-green diamond. And American League shows the baseline and the equipment at the bottom instead of just the portrait. Sorry. This is a Hassan. And the first one with the baselines is a Sweet Caparel. So that's the first variation. If you're collecting the set, you don't need both of those. You only need one. If you're collecting a master set, which I have, you do need both print variations. Now here is the other card in this set. And this is called Hal Chase Left Ear Shows. So this one, he's looking towards you. This one's he's slightly more turned and you can't see his ear. Beautiful card. And this is also a Hassan back. Backs aren't as meaningful as they are T206s, but I do just want to show you the back. There are some or many print variations about the backs in other players. So he should have been shown last week, but I skipped him. So now let's continue where he left off. And this is actually a very good episode. I mean, Hal Chase was a great player, although a dirty player. And now you're going to have 3 Hall of Famers right in a row. And the first one is Ty Cobb. Now, I'm not going to say much about Ty Cobb to make this video not as long. I mean, other than he is one of the greatest players that has ever played, and he was inducted in the very first class into the Hall of Fame. And I think he's actually the very first player inducted into the Hall of Fame. So Ty Cobb is actually a Tier 1 Hall of Famer. One of the top players that ever lived. And let me show you the back. Piedmont. Whoa, guys are flying all over the place. Come on, Chase, don't ruin Ty Cobb's day. So that's Ty Cobb. He's one of the Chase cards in the set. Maybe the Chase card. Well, actually, there is a print variation, 2 print variation Chase cards, which are the best. But as far as normal cards, this is probably the best one. So Ty Cobb. Okay, next Hall of Famer has 2 cards in the set, 2 alternate style cards. And this is the first one. And this is Eddie Collins. And same thing about Eddie. The only thing I can say about him is that he is considered one of the best second basemen in the major leagues ever. You have to mention his name when you're talking about the very best second baseman ever. And he was inducted in the 4th class of the Hall of Fame. So once again, you got the American League style card with the diamond. Nice card. Now this variation of the card is mouth closed. You see Eddie's looking and his mouth is closed. And this is a Piedmont back that was in somebody's scrapbook at one time. And then the short printed variation of mouth open. So that's Eddie Collins. Once again, one of the great players in Major League Baseball. Now, the next guy, also a Hall of Famer, and that is Jimmy Collins. Jimmy played for 14 years, starting with the Louisville Colonials, and then the Boston Beaneaters of the National League, and then the upstart Boston Red Sox of the American League, and finishing his career with a couple of years in the Philadelphia A's. He is a good hitter, but Collins was a very good defensive third baseman. He actually changed the way forever how third basemen played defense. Before Collins, shortstops were actually expected to field bunts. The third baseman pretty much stood right near the bag. But Collins played off the bag, and he would rush in for bunts, grab them with his bare hands, and throw them over to first base for the out. He also was the first third baseman who would run into the outfield for pop flies over his head to catch him in the outfield or outfield foul territory. He was on the 1901 upstart Boston Red Sox, and he not only was the third baseman, but he was also the manager. He took the Red Sox to the World Series in 1903 and beat the Pittsburgh Pirates for what is considered the first modern-day World Series. Inducted into the Hall of Fame in 1945, he was the first third baseman to be inducted. So here is Jimmy after his Major League days. He was a player manager for the Providence Grays, and I love this card. This is my favorite T205 card, the deep green background, standing out in the white uniform, swinging the bat. The little P's for Providence. This is in a Hassan back. And in case you're interested, it is graded a 5. I don't know if PSA were graded a 5, but it is a very, very nice card. And my favorite card in the set because it is a Providence player and Hall of Famer and a third baseman. So Jimmy Collins. Now, the last player this episode is Frank Corridon. He was a pitcher from 1904 to 1910. 1 year each with the Cubs and Cardinals. And in between those 1 years, he spent 5 years with the Phillies. So he is depicted on the Cardinals. This is his last year that he played. His record was 70 and 67, 2.80 ERA, and 458 Ks. He was good enough to last 6 years in the major, but he's one of those players that gets lost in time and everyone forgets about Frank Corridon. But his name does still pop up every now and then. And the reason why is that he is the person who invented the spitball. So here is the spitball inventor, Frank Corridon, of the National League St. Louis Cardinals. That's why it's depicted as just the portrait, as other National League players are. Nice blue background. And this is a polar bear. And you see the tobacco stains because this was inserted into loose leaf tobacco. So they do bear naturally the tobacco stains. So our last guy in the T205 checklist today. I hope you enjoyed that episode, and I hope you look forward to another episode of Tobacco Card Tuesday. Have a great one, everybody. Goodbye.